Hi everyone, welcome to the Secondary Reading and ELA, FSA Writing and Reading Parent Academy. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what the FSA looks like for your children, as well as different strategies and ideas for supporting reading and writing at home. So let's start with, what is the FSA? The FSA is an authentic assessment. It covers more than just multiple choice questions, including several technologically enhanced items that we'll look at later, especially if you have a child in grades 7 through 10. The FSA focuses on analytical thinking, so it's going to prepare your child for success in college, career, and later on in life. Additionally, the FSA measures the student mastery of the standards that their teacher has taught them throughout the school year. And finally, it meets the high quality standards for assessment. It's reliable, it's valid for a variety of accountability purposes, including your child's teacher's evaluation scores, the school grade, etc. To say that this year has been challenging would be an immense understatement. The administration dates here are the most updated administration dates we have available, but keep in mind that they may change again. Additionally, these dates are going to vary by your school. Keep in mind that if you have a 6th grader, their testing window for FSA reading is a little bit shorter than grades 7 through 10. Let's talk about test length. For the FSA writing component, your child is going to have 2 hours to complete their writing test. This includes reading a passage set, planning their essay, and writing, editing, and submitting their essay. If your child has an IEP, keep in mind that he or she may be eligible for extra time. Let's talk about the FSA reading component. There are 2 days of testing, which means there are 2 sessions in grades 6 through 10, including retakes. The minutes per session will vary between 85 to 90 minutes per session, which means that there is a total of 170 to 180 minutes for the entire FSA reading test. If your child is in 11th or 12th grade and retaking the FSA, they will be allowed to have up to half the length of a typical school day to complete each session. As you can see here, the number of items, the percentage of text types, and the number of words that your child will be required to read will vary by grade level. It is important to note that if your child is in 6th grade, they will still be required to take a paper-based FSA test. However, if they're in grades 7 through 10, they'll be taking their test on the computer, which means they'll be navigating several technologically enhanced items, which may comprise 25 to 50% of the test. For the selectable hot text items, these are excerpted sentences from the overall passage that students are required to select. As they hover over particular sentences, phrases, or words, they will highlight as options. These items may be 1 or 2 parts. In a 2-part hot text item, Part A might ask the student to make an analysis or an inference, and Part B might require the student to use the text to support the answer in Part A. In other cases, 2 parts might function independently. It should be noted that multi-select items can be on both the paper-based and the online-based version of the FSA reading assessment. For multi-select, the student is directed to select all of the correct answers from among a number of options. The question stem will always indicate to your child how many answer choices they should select. Oftentimes, these answer choices are going to be direct textual evidence, but other times they can be analysis, inferences, or statements. Evidence-based selected responses are items that are always going to be 2 parts. The student is going to be directed to select the correct answers from Part A and Part B. Keep in mind that your child must get both parts correct to receive any points for these items. For the editing task choice items, these items are going to be assessing your child's mastery of the language standards that your teacher has taught them throughout the school year. These are going to be items about conventions and grammar. The student will select the highlighted word or phrase, which reveals options for correcting an error. They can also indicate that there is no error and to keep the answer choice the same. The graphic response item display or grid items are going to be one of the more complex item types that your child will have to navigate while taking the FSA. In these particular items, students will select words, phrases, or even images and use the drag and drop feature to place them into a graphic organizer or other format. For these item types, it is going to be really important that your child reads the directions for these items very carefully. This item type presents options in columns and rows that your child will be required to match up. Typically, there's only one correct option per column or row, although that may vary. Again, this is why it's going to be very important that your child read the question stem carefully. It should also be noted that these items appear in both the online and paper-based versions of the assessment. For both versions of the FSA, your child may be required to engage with some multimedia elements. This may include audio clips, slideshows, or animations. Multimedia elements may appear within the passages or the test items themselves. For the paper-based version of the test, your child will be required to raise their hand so the test administrator can provide access to the multimedia element. However, on the online-based version of the test, your child will be able to navigate and engage with that multimedia element independently. On FSAassessments.org, your child can take computer-based practice tests to engage with the technologically enhanced items. Simply select the grade level and the type of test that your child would like to practice. Now let's talk about FSA scoring criteria. There are two different scores that your child will get. One will be the achievement level. Now, if you have a child who's in 6th grade or up, you probably already know that the achievement level required to be satisfactory is a level 3. However, there are also specific scale scores that will give you a better idea of where your child fell within those achievement levels. As you can see in the table below, the scale scores increase in difficulty as you go through each grade level. What was once a 3 in 5th grade would no longer be considered a 3 in 6th grade if your child were to receive the same exact score. So it becomes a little bit more difficult each year to acquire that level 3 achievement level. Now let's talk about writing. There are two different writing types your child may be required to engage with: informative explanatory or opinion argumentative. These will change throughout the school years as well. For the informative and explanatory writing prompts, students must develop a controlling idea and support it by synthesizing and analyzing ideas from the texts provided. For the opinion argumentative writing prompts, students must develop an opinion, an argument, or a claim and support it by synthesizing and analyzing ideas and evidence from the text provided. Your children will get between 2 to 4 texts to read prior to engaging with the prompt and planning their essay. Regardless of whether your child gets an informative or argumentative essay, it is going to be scored out of 10 points. And each category is worth a different amount of points. Now, for both informative and argumentative, the categories are purpose, focus, and organization, evidence and elaboration, and conventions. The only real difference is what the content of each essay is required to have. As you can also see, conventions is only worth 2 points out of the 10. So now we can talk about resources for parents, helping your child become a stronger reader and writer so they can be successful on the FSA reading and writing assessments. So let's start with just some basic ways of how you can help your children become better readers. The first one's pretty easy. Talk to your children and expose them to a variety of words. Even if they're not sure what those words mean or those words are above their grade level, explain what they mean and help them understand them. Ask your child questions about their day and what they're learning in school. Make reading a regular activity. Model reading for leisure. When you have a book in your hand, your child's going to want to have a book in his or her hand too. And encourage activities that require reading. The Florida Department of Education has a plethora of resources for you to look through on how to become engaged with reading with your child. Their one big initiative is Just Take 20, where you and your child just take 20 minutes a day to drop everything and read something for pleasure. If you go to the websites on this screen, you'll see that there's a plethora of resources for you to use and read through to start this journey of just taking 20 and encouraging your children to read beyond the classroom. In addition to the Florida Department of Education resources, your child also has access to several different resources through their DCPS account. The one you might be most familiar with is Achieve 3000, which can help students build up their lexile so that comprehending complex text becomes slightly easier for them. Feel free to encourage your child to do Achieve 3000 articles at home as well as at school. If your child is struggling to understand literature, especially things like poetry, Common Lit is a great resource as well. And they also have access to this through their DCPS account and will log in via Clever or Blended Learning. Finally, if your child needs some additional tutorials around the skills that English language arts requires, CPALMS has several tutorials, over 252 in fact, for English language arts, in addition to 125 other resources. They also have tutorials for all other content areas. Beyond the Just Take 20 initiative, put forth by the Florida Department of Education, there are several things that you as a parent can do to encourage reading and writing at home. When we think about reading, you want to start by reading with your child every day. Don't stop reading aloud once your child can read on their own either. Even high schoolers enjoy having things read aloud to them. Use audiobooks and podcasts. Even if they're not looking at the words, it's important for them to still be hearing them. Additionally, make reading fun. Create a reading nook and vary your reading selections. Ask your child questions about what they read. They don't have to be analytical questions. They can just be simply, what are you reading? And what do you enjoy? What do you not like? And finally, reinforce what your child is learning at school. The most important part of making your child a lifelong reader is to make reading and writing a part of your everyday activities. Don't leave home without a book. Point out and read aloud written words in your environment, even street signs. Visit the library. Build a home library so your child can always have access to books they want to read. It's the same for writing. And first of all, encourage your child to write for fun, leaving notes around the house for each other, getting them a journal. Ask your child for help with daily writing tasks, like shopping lists, for example. Talk with your child regularly and ask a lot of questions. Having them answer those questions is building up their ability to write about things. And then also provide them the writing materials that they need. Journals, pens, pencils, paper, anything like that. Here's just a slide of all the direct links to all of the resources we talked about today. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this recorded PowerPoint. If you have any questions whatsoever about encouraging reading and writing at home or the FSA assessment, please reach out to Brandy Berry or Fallon Rothenberg at the emails below.